This morning, I've got the pleasure of having a really unfiltered chat with Anna, and I'll get Anna to introduce herself in a moment. But for anyone that doesn't know us, that's just come across this content, my name's Eve, and I'm the founder of Project Emerald. And we've recently branched out into the Project Emerald Collective, which aims to share knowledge with women from all walks of life that will collectively raise our vibration and also empower us to live a more intentional life. Because as we know, we only get one shot, and let's make it count. So over to you, Anna. So nice to have you here this morning with us.
Thanks, Eve. Thanks for having me. By way of introduction, I want to say that I'm just turned 63 and I have my own business and based in southern Tasmania. I am wife and mother to 4 children, although they're adults now. I've got 2 sons who are 25 and 28 and 2 stepdaughters who are 25 and 34, as well as 2 grandchildren, 5 and 2. And out there in the world, I'm known as someone who helps people to think clearly and take that chaos that occurs in our heads and all around us and turn that into something of clarity.
Absolutely. Yes. And, we're all here to kind of get that clarity and take our power back as women. So you've got so much life experience to share. So I'm so excited to get into the content today. So to kick things off, Anna, what does living intentionally mean to you today?
Over a lifetime of, 63 years, it's taken me a long time to even work out how to be intentional in what I do. So a lot of my life was just, well, the next situation comes along, the next opportunity comes along, the next problem comes along. But as I've got older and I've done a lot of work on understanding how humans behave and act and why we do what we do, and what I'd say is that it takes a long time to work out what it is you should really be intending to do anyway. So what that looks like now is a whole lot of reflection, a whole lot of considering what is it that would lead to a satisfactory life, like versus a successful life. So what satisfies me right now? And so that's something to think about, is what actually is satisfying, because I think in our heads we have success like lots of money or lots of but it's often not that. So everything I do now really is quite intentional. Like, is this a thing I really want to do, or am I just doing it because I feel like I should? So that's probably what I'd say about living an intentional life as someone in their 60s.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've recently had a light shone on that word should, and I really hate it. Can we just stop shooting all over ourselves? Like if you're saying should, it's obviously something that you don't actually want to do. And it feels like you don't have the power to change it. So looking back across your career and life, what lessons have had the biggest impact on how you live your life?
Gosh. Well, look, I think one of the things is to reflect. So stuff happens, like good stuff, bad stuff, stuff. We all go through this up and down, and I try really hard not to talk in, saying things like life is a journey, but quite honestly, I cannot think of a better way of saying it. There's a lesson in everything, and sometimes it takes such a long time to unpack what that is, because you're so busy beating yourself up or beating the other person up or whatever it is. But I'd have to say the life lessons are, everything gets revealed. Sooner or later, everything makes sense. And the things that are bad or the things that people did to you, there's a lesson to learn in that. Like, how did you come out of that? What did you learn from that experience? No matter what. So I'd have to say the life lessons are to really reflect and to take responsibility for the fact that you're part of it. So I had a relationship that failed, and it's like, well, I was part of that. Like, I got something to do with that. Or something didn't go well at work. Well, I've actually got something to do with that. I'm here. So it's that idea of being responsible for the fact that you're here in this environment and it's got something to do with you. Not like it's your fault, but it's got something to do with you. And therefore, you've got some control over it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on the power of reflection, which is super powerful in itself, and also giving yourself the pause and the space to have that time to reflect and, learn the lesson or celebrate the win, whichever it is. Could be both at the same time. Yeah, I think there's power in the pause.
Mm,
So,
definitely.
we touched on this briefly earlier, but how has your definition of success changed over time, do you think?
Gosh, I can remember thinking success was when I've got a husband, when I've got a house, and when I've got babies. Now, I had all of those things. That was not success. There was something else, and I did not know what it was. And I've literally been searching for what is that thing that I'm striving for. I've been searching for that for, nearly 30 years with all the development work I've done. And I think what I got to is success is kind of whatever you say it is.
Mm,
And I did a great training program that talked about forget about the word success and think about the word satisfaction
yeah.
or satisfy. So rather than going, oh, well, I'll be successful when I'm a millionaire or whatever we want to say, like what amount of money would satisfy me? And what kind of relationship would satisfy me? And what kind of environment would satisfy me? And what happens when you do that, in my experience, is there's a sense of peace. Because I've done a lot of training with a lot of very, very successfully, globally successful, wealthy people. And yet here I am living in our little house in, country Tasmania. I'm totally satisfied. I'm totally satisfied. I don't want to be, a flying around the world in first class, business class kind of person. It's great if you can, but that's not the satisfaction I'm looking for. So I think this idea of success is this, I don't know, globally agreed thing we all strive for. It's just not true. It's
Mm,
just not true that success can look like whatever you say satisfies you. And I'd have to say, when people start to think like that, a whole lot of stress and, shoulds and all of that stuff just drops, just drops. So that's what I'd say about success.
yeah, that's a great reflection. And, it's not like, these social media lives and these, Instagram perfect lives. And, we're not enough. And I'm just annoyed with that. And I just feel like we're so much more than a picture on a social media post. They might be real and, you could feel those feelings of, wanting to share that with the world. And that's awesome. But how it has the power to undermine how you're feeling and eat away at your confidence is something that doesn't sit right with me.
Hmm.
So I guess, these real conversations that we're going to be having on the podcast are about living more intentionally and giving yourself that time to pause, reflect, and also get really real with yourself as to, what success does look like for you, what satisfaction does look like for you.
Something about that if I had recognized that in my younger years, then I would have a different life.
Mm,
Not necessarily better, just different. And recognizing, like, going through hardships or stresses or whatever, however you want to call it, if we just had perfect lives, we would not develop as human beings.
mm,
And I'm a really great believer in we are here on this planet for a reason. And I think one of those reasons is for us to develop ourselves and our souls to be the best that we can be, whatever that looks like. And so I believe now that things get literally thrown in our way to help us get stronger in whatever way that needs to be, develop or evolve, whatever you want to call it, but also get on track.
mm,
So over my life, I can see lots of disappointments, the job I didn't get, the relationship that didn't work, the house I didn't buy, all of these disappointments or regrets. But what I can see now is if you imagine your life is, like a journey on a road, it's like those things got thrown in front of me to go, hang on, Anna, wrong way. You're going the wrong way. Get off this road. You're meant to be going on that road, not this road. So whenever I have clients, and most of my clients are women in their 40s or 50s, whenever they're pushing up against something, I invite them to consider that that's just like the universe going, this is not your path.
Mhm.
This job, this promotion, this direction, this relationship, this whatever, this is not meant for you. Or you are just meant to develop yourself in a way to overcome that obstacle. But either way, obstacles are there for a reason.
Mhm.
It's not, well, in a way it is personal to you, but not like you're the victim of circumstances, but more like this is something for you to work through. If anyone's struggling now with something, it's happening for a reason. Who knows what that reason is, but it's happening for a reason. And I think a lot of the things that happened to me, and now I can see part of that was so that at this age, and in the work I do with organizations and teams and people, I have a level of experience and empathy. Like, yeah, I get what you're going through because I had that same thing. So I've got this experience I can share with people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you do know that deep down, but it's just sometimes actually being okay with the uncertainty is the hardest part to
Absolutely.
navigate through.
Yeah. And to add to that, what I find with myself and my clients and my family and everyone, when confronted with something, we often don't know what to do, right? So it's like we say that, I don't know what to do about this. This is just a mess. This is just chaos. I don't know what to do. What I would say is you don't know what to do because you don't know how to think about it. And we get very trapped as humans into the facts and the emotion and the story, and we bundle it all together. This is terrible, and oh, this has happened, and this. We get very emotionally attached to what has happened. When you can separate that, and honestly, it does take some time to separate the facts from the story and the emotion that you've got running about that. But if you can separate the facts and go, okay, here's what actually happened. This person said XYZ, or this investment failed, or I don't know, this thing happened. Now, from a very objective, factual point of view, what can I see about that? Or what can I do about that? But we tend to have this really negative experience or event and then just spin into, oh my God, I don't know how to fix this. And oh, this is terrible. And now I look like an idiot. And what are people going to. We just spin out of control. And it's really, really unhelpful. I was thinking earlier, I had a friend ring me once and she said, "Can I talk to you? I'm trying to make a decision about buying a house and I know you can help me." And really, she was just stuck in this story about she should buy this house for her kids, but then she really liked this house and so just thinking objectively about the situation you're in is the bit that's really, really hard for people. And I think particularly women, because we feel like we carry not only our decision making, but, the entire family or, whatever the broader context is. And leading on from that, I maintain that one of the most valuable things that women can do is get an older woman and get their help. Now, I've had older women all through my life just randomly show up, or maybe not, but the next door neighbor or the woman that I boarded with in my 20s or the lady that gave me massage in my 30s and so on. Always older women. I have lots and lots of memories of where older women have helped me in all of these crazy, chaotic situations I found myself in. And they helped by just bringing some wisdom to it
Mhm.
and some peace of mind to it and some objective thinking, because I'm sure the older you get, when you reflect back or you're dealing with teenagers or whatever, there's a part of you that can go, "Oh my God, what a drama." Like, move on, you can get over that kind of thing. So that's the other thing I would add to this is to get through life and to live a satisfied life, find older women that you can relate to. Find an older woman to help you and talk things through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's not usually your mum.
No,
Usually,
it's not your mum. It
mum,
might
I
be your
love you,
mum's
but
friend.
yeah, someone that's not so invested in the situation is often,
Totally.
yeah, bringing in those older women like yourself with that wisdom that we can share collectively and learn and grow and lean on. So thank you so much for that.
That's
That's
and
probably why I'm enjoying this conversation so much.
well, maybe, but the thing about life, and I look at myself now at 63, and I can remember in my 40s interviewing one of my older women mentors who was 63. And the things she said, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, that she's saying these things. And I can totally believe it now. Finding your group, like people call it different things, your tribe, your people, whatever. But surrounding yourself with people who help, not people who gossip or collude. Like if you've got a problem and you go to your friendship group and you go, oh, this awful thing happened, and they're just throwing kind of fuel on the fire, that's not necessarily the group of people that are going to help you get through life. And one of the things I found over the years is where I had friends like that, I tended to just not spend much time with them because I came away drained. I didn't come away going, oh, that was really good to talk that thing through and now I feel better. I came away going, oh my God, this is just overwhelming. So, keeping an eye out for people that you just connect with and people who lift you up and don't collude. And, if you come to them and say, I'm having this issue with my partner, they don't start saying, oh, yeah, he or she is a real pain, like that's not helpful.
No.
So that's the other thing that I would add to this is to live a satisfied life, you actually need help. You don't always have to pay for it, but you do need help. You literally cannot live a satisfied life without help. It just doesn't work. I've tried it. It's really, it's really
Yeah.
painful.
Well, yeah, and if it's isolating as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're in your own head. Like, I read somewhere, don't ever believe anything you think. And I think it's true. We just roll around in our own head and create this big mess and then wonder why we can't see the future. Mm,
Yeah, I heard the saying recently, you can't see the jar when you're inside it.
no, that's exactly right. You can't. And I would say it is my training and practice. Like, we go to the gym or we practice a sport or we practice a craft, but we don't practice what we let in our head. And I was having this conversation the other day with one of my kids is we indulge the drama. We really strengthen that looping in our head versus going, okay, yes, valid, and cutting that thought process. And I've practiced for years and years doing that. And still I get hooked in and I have to keep saying to myself, remember, this will actually make sense. It will all sort itself out. Stop telling yourself it's a mess, etc., etc. And eventually it works, but it's a practice. It's like a muscle. You have to develop that kind of muscle if you want to move yourself in a way that you feel drawn to.
Yeah. What kind of tools have you developed over the years that help you with that?
I've got all sorts of random things I do, and they might not directly relate to that. But one of the things that I've been doing each year for probably 20 odd years is to sit down and reflect on the past year and to a few things, acknowledge what happened in that year and what I'm proud of, and acknowledge what I learnt. And one of the things I do is life phases tool through the work of Rudolf Steiner. And I
Mhm.
keep track of the things that happened in that past 12 months that are memorable. It's obvious things like, someone died or someone was born or I moved house or I got a different job. But more than that, it's what kind of illnesses did I have? What kind of insights did I have? Which people did I meet that impacted me? And
Mm.
when you start keeping track of that kind of thing, you develop a history. And you can actually you can do it now from early as you remember. You can think about, what do I remember from my first year of life? What do I remember from my second year, et cetera, et cetera. And it's that work that we call biography work that helps you start to strengthen that capacity to go, my life has gone up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and it will continue to do so. And what am I seeing? Where do I fall off the rails? And so as an example, I know for myself doing that work that, as a young child, I got in trouble at school, right? Most of us did. And that authority of the principal speaking to me and, being in trouble, that that feeling has popped up over and over and over in my life. And so now it pops up. If I've got a meeting with a client who might be like the CEO or the general manager or someone in authority,
Mhm.
my brain automatically falls back into, oh my God, I'm in trouble with the principal. And so there's this practice of me going, no, Anna, you are not in trouble with the principal.
Yeah. We've moved on from that.
Yeah, but those early events in your life are still there.
Yeah.
Sometimes the 5-year-old is still running my life. So there's this practice of almost stepping back from your thinking and going, what am I telling myself up in here? So there's this consciousness of thinking that's really, really important, and reflection, because you can really only see your life from looking backwards, like in a rear vision mirror in a car. You really can't make sense of life looking forward. You have to reflect back in order to look forward. So that's just some of the tools. Writing things down helps. Talking to someone to unpack your thinking really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess having the awareness that you are not your thoughts.
Yes. We think we are. We think we are. Yes, I've done a lot of work around unpacking the way humans think like whatever's in my head is reality. It's actually not. It is really not.
Yeah. That's really super powerful to have that realization, but also to then have that awareness moving forward so that you know you have the power, the agency over your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all think differently. So I know that I'm not good at thinking through certain things, but I know someone who is. And they're in a way, the other part of my brain. So I did do some training over the last 10, 15 years, which was all about, we're really good at thinking a certain way. Like I'm really good
Mhm.
at taking chaos and organizing it, but I'm not really good at big picture, strategic, anything's possible kind of thinking. So I have a group of people who are, and I go to them when I need to think like that. And they literally help me think like that. So having this, surrounding yourself in an environment of help is really, really important if what you want to do and what you want to satisfy in your life is something that you can't do on your own. So that's something else to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there moments when you realized you were living according to other people's expectations rather than your own?
Moments, yeah, pretty much my whole life. I think I think up until I was in my 40s, which is not unusual in your 40s that you really start to take stock of what's been going on. But yeah, up until my 40s, I was very much, you know, find a man to marry, have kids, do this, do that, do all of these things that I thought people expected of me, the culture. And it was really in my 40s that I started to go, actually, all the way that I've constructed my life actually doesn't really work. Like it doesn't serve what I'm here to do. I'm just not quite achieving what I can feel I'm here to do. And of course, at that time in my 40s, I still didn't really know what I was here to do, but I knew what I wasn't here to do, and it wasn't quite that. So something had to shift. If I think about the expectations of others that I lived by, some of those were quite explicitly spoken, like,
Yeah,
you
okay.
should not do that, you should do this. And some of those were just made up in my head. I just made stuff up that I thought my mum would expect me to do this, or my boss would expect me to do this, or my husband or whoever would expect me to do this. When in actual fact, a lot of it was just made up and turned
Yeah,
into a
right.
should.
Okay, and did you get intentional to realize where you had that moment of realization that you were living to other people's.
It was in some training that I was doing, and one of the exercises we did was to write down all the shoulds. Write down all the shoulds, in terms of your relationship, in terms of your money, like everything you can think of where you are shoulding. Write all of those down.
Okay.
And then the next part of it was to just see how ridiculous that was, right? To see things on paper and get them out of your head. That's one of the main tools I use with people. But when you see on paper all of these crazy shoulds that you have been living against, you sort of have a bit of a laugh, but then you're also a bit cringy going, oh my goodness. But then you start to look and go, that's the standard that you created. You created this standard called I should be the perfect mother, or, I should be cooking nutritious meals for my kids every day, or I should never lose my temper, or I should always be, keen to have sex with my husband, or I should always be this, or I should always be that. They are just these standards that I've was trying to live to over the top of a reality, like what's really going on here. So it was that kind of exercise to really unpack the shoulds from actually what's my intention underneath that. Like my intention might be, I want to be the best mum that I can. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean I have to cook a nutritious meal every night and do this and do that for my kids. It actually means I need to be the best person for myself first before I start giving everything to my kids. So it was really that process of emptying my head onto paper. And I would recommend anyone who's stuck on anything, just empty it on paper, because when it comes out on paper, there's a space in your head to look at it very objectively. And
Great work, Anna. What role has confidence played, do you think, throughout your life and career?
well, it's all bound up with everything I've been talking about. When you're living the shoulds, then you're not particularly very confident, because I don't know about you, but all those shoulds I had, I wasn't very good at achieving them. And confidence, I would say for me, I really got confident when I understood my value and I understood the contribution that I could be in any situation. And up until I understood that, I just always felt like, oh, I shouldn't say anything, or I shouldn't do anything. I should just keep my head down. So it's very much, again, this consciousness of what you bring, what skills you bring, what you're naturally good at. And again, that's one of the things I work with my clients about is like, what are you doing every day that you are just so good at you don't even have to think about? And when you start to get clear on that, you become really confident. And like you heard me say a minute ago, I know I'm not good at thinking of really big out of the box strategies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm confident about that because I'm not pretending anymore that I should be good at that. I'm actually going, oh man, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at small talk. I'm not good at this and I'm not good at that. And then there's a level of confidence, but I'm really good at this thing. So
Mm.
I'd say that about confidence. And until you start to wrap your head around that, I don't know that you can ever feel truly confident. And again, confidence is just a story in your head, but still, it's pretty strong. And there's a lot of underlying stories that you're bringing from your childhood. You know, like I'm not good at maths, which is not true, but I've been carrying that for my whole life.
Yeah, that's a really good way of looking at it, actually. Letting go of the things that you're not good at and focusing on those that you are good at.
Mm,
And I guess living your life not by expectation, but by intentionally creating it is going to bring you confidence as well.
yeah. And creating it from what will satisfy you.
Yeah. And that's different for
What
everyone.
will satisfy you? Exactly. Because what satisfies me, not the same as anyone else. Yeah, totally.
How do women sometimes lose themselves as they move through different life stages? Have you experienced?
Hmm. Well, I've got an I've got an answer that you might not like, which is, did we ever really find ourselves? So, how do we lose ourselves? Well, I kind of, again, I believe that when we come into this life, we have a purpose. We're here for a reason, and it's like we forgot it.
Mm,
So, to me, life is about remembering why we're here.
yes.
And all of the tools and the practices that I've been talking about today are all part of remembering why I'm here. And at each of the different phases of life, there's, there's something that we all go through. Like in our 20s, it's called the age of adventure in the biography life phases work that I do. The age of adventure. And everyone can think about, anyone who's been thinking, I was here, I was there, I was like, my brain was all over the place. I didn't know if I should do this or that or whatever. There's lots of questions. And every phase of life, there is a different, I guess, a different focus that just arises within us. So what I was focused on in my 20s, I'm not focused on that anymore. I honestly don't care anymore. And the same with your 30s and your 40s. So things shift. And so rather than saying, women lose themselves, I think what's going on is we're trying to find our true purpose. Like, why are we here? And all these other things have got in the way
Mm,
of why we're here. And I guess
yes.
sometimes in our darkest moments, whatever they look like for each of us, there's that question arises like, what the hell is this all about? Like,
Mm.
I'm exhausted, or I'm sick of this, or I'm over this. I don't know what to do. And that's those moments of, you're here for something. What is it? Hmm.
Yeah, I certainly had a lot of years like that. So, can you give any advice, to our audience of how to powerful techniques to help you remember?
Well, the first question I usually ask people, and most people go, oh my goodness, and that is, think back to when you were 9 years old or 8 or 9, right? Think back to that time of your life when you were 8 or 9. What did you want to be when you grew up? And most people have a memory of something they wanted to be when they grew up. So if I think back to that period of my life, I was very clear, and I've got this picture in my mind. I wanted to be a teacher. Now, I became a teacher and I hated it. All right. But if I think back as a 8, 9 year old in the 1970s in country New South Wales, Australia, what I really wanted to do, what I knew deep down inside me that I wanted to do was called teacher, because there was no word for, mentor, coach, organizational development. Like those words didn't exist
Mm.
in my environment as an 8-year-old. So I had it in my head, I wanted to be a teacher. And it has evolved in that over the years, I was a teacher and I really, really did not like it. And then I ended up becoming a consultant in the Department of Education, and I really did like that. And then I moved into being a corporate trainer, and I really did like that. So as I moved through my life, it evolved more into what I'm doing now, which is literally teaching managers how to manage, is what I say I do. I'm still a teacher. It's just not in that 8-year-old's mind as a school teacher as such, because I didn't have any other word for it. So when I asked that question of people that I'm working with, it was something like a priest or a nun, right? Because they grew up in a Catholic school or, religious environment in the 70s or the 80s. But when they unpack it, it's the beingness. So, for instance, a client recently who said she wanted to be a nun when she was 9, she said, but actually, I can see now what I meant by that was nurturing and caring for people.
Yeah, right.
And a man I worked with said he wanted to be a priest. And he said, but I can see now, like, I wanted to be like a scholar. I wanted to study because priests were always reading the Bible. So it
Hmm.
was that image or that thinking of being a scholar. What other word can you attach to it in the 70s? Well, priest. So that's where I'd urge people to look. What is that thing that you really were in love with when you were 8 or 9? I've had someone go from being an auditor to a florist because she
Yeah,
saw
right.
that she actually wanted to be a florist. Lots of examples. So that's a really simple place to start.
Yeah,
And if
right.
you
And
if you can, ask your parents if they're still around, ask your siblings, like, what did we do when we were that age? Like, what was I into at that age? Hmm.
yeah, and it might not necessarily be, the title that you gave it at the time, but it's the qualities
Yes, yes,
that you were drawn
exactly.
to.
Yes, yes. And I had an image in my head of putting a blue book on the table with some pencils. And when I do my Women of Wisdom programs, I will typically give them a blue book with pencils to do some drawing. So it's like the day I did it, I went, oh my goodness, there is my 9-year-old's memory of putting this book with pencils on the table in front of someone.
Gosh, that's so cool that that actually came to fruition, and
Mm.
you had lots of twists and plot twists.
It only took like 50 years, but
Well, at least you got there. Do you think it was meant to take that
oh,
long?
totally, totally. Absolutely, absolutely. I was a teacher and it was that I just didn't like that. Just wasn't it. But I kind of learnt the mechanics and I was terrible at it. And then in corporate training, I learnt content. Like corporate training is knowledge. It's just content. It's not implementation. It's just content. So then the next job I had was the failed practice as a manager, the content. And then I had an opportunity to put it together and train an entire organization into how to be a manager. And then it started to evolve from there. And as well as the training that I'd done through Rudolf Steiner and his philosophies, it all came together. So all of these threads through your life,
Mm,
they all start to weave together if you're conscious of them.
yeah.
And that's why this reflecting on what do you remember from each year of life is really valuable because it starts to grab the threads.
Yeah, okay.
And, you start to weave those together to go, oh, this is all about, this kind of thing.
So, and you're looking at the good and the bad of the previous year or years?
The language that is used is the trials and the triumphs. So, if I think back the past year just off the top of my head, illness and what did I learn about that
Mhm.
versus, success in a particular program I did with a client. So it's things like that. But it's not the physical stuff so much. It's also like I experienced a sense of peace around being a grandmother or, the inner life that we have that we often don't focus on because we're so materialistic or physical in what we're looking at out in the world. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on inside. That issue I had with that person's kind of just dissolved, or I can feel myself less attached to that thing or that issue.
Yeah, yeah, time has the power to do that, I've found.
Exactly. And that's why this reflecting on life is so valuable. I think the easiest way to describe it is, if you see a movie and they're picking a lock and they're going click, 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 and it's all kind of gradually clicking into place, That's my
Oh,
experience of looking back. Every time I look back through my biography or life phases, I see something different. And I always laugh because I go, my God, I forgot all about that. You see it out in the environment now, particularly in the news, where there's historical things that pop up for people
mhm.
because you bury stuff. You just bury stuff and you forget about it. You literally forget about it. And I've got examples of where I forgot about stuff. Not necessarily bad, just forgot stuff and went, oh wow, why did I not even think of that before? And it's kind of like it just wasn't time to reveal that. So there's lots of things in your life that are useful to think through, but you've forgotten them.
True. I find it powerful actually to look through photos on my phone
Yep.
occasionally,
Yep.
just like random
Exactly.
years.
Yeah. And if you were to take that and to start to, list down, the people that you were friends with and the things you were doing and the concerns that you had, you start to see a picture of like, oh, for me, I'm always thinking I'm in trouble. Or I'm always, drawn to these kinds of situations. Or I always do well here. Or this illness keeps popping up. What's that all
Mm,
about?
yeah. Again, back to the power of reflection.
Absolutely. And reflection in a constructive way, not a, gosh, I'm hopeless. You'd think I'd learn this by now. Like,
Mhm.
not to beat yourself up. All of those trials or things that went wrong, there is a lesson in there. And I know I had a really difficult workplace situation a few years ago, and I knew there was a learning in there. And it took me 3 years to get to the bottom of it. 3 years. And I went searching. I searched so hard to work out what that was about. And in the end, what I worked out was this difficult situation was simply someone saying something that deep down I believed about myself that was true.
Yeah, right.
And I was just angry and I knew it wasn't them, but I could not get to the bottom of it. And eventually, through a whole lot of, insights into different things, it suddenly dawned on me. I actually think that's true about myself. That's why I'm so upset.
Yeah, right.
Finally, freedom. Yeah. I know I'm probably making it all sound like hard work.
No, I mean, I guess it all leads to the the satisfying life, the
Yeah,
reflection. And I guess uncovering those beliefs about yourself is only really going to be a good thing, so you can move through it and
absolutely.
yeah, move on and
Yeah,
something better.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally, totally.
So share with us your advice on uncertain about what comes next.
Well, it's all of the things I've talked about, but I would say take some, I'm from an older generation. I'm almost a baby boomer. So when people say, I need some space and I need some time, my brain kind of goes, oh my goodness. But what I would say about that is take some time without your phone, without anything, and just go out into whatever bush you've got, go out into the garden, go out into nature somewhere and just be. And don't try and solve anything. Just kind of let it come. And if there's grief, let it out. It's worse not to cry than to cry. Like let out all that grief and all that frustration. And just try not to fix it, but just see what you see. Like what do you really want in life? And I think the thing that often stops us is the second we see what we really want, our mind straight away goes, yeah, but you can't afford that. Or yeah, what about the kids? Or yeah, like shuts it down immediately. But don't don't try not to shut it down, but just go, what is it that I really want? And there's this lovely question I ask my clients and myself from time to time, which is if you could do anything without fear of failure, what is it you would do right now? What is it that you would do? And often what it is that you would do in its raw declaration isn't possible right now, but often it is. Often it is. So, if you're not sure what to do next, take some time out and think constructively, objectively. Also, seek the help of an older woman who's
Mm,
not going to collude. An older woman who can just listen and assure you that it's actually okay. Because the way, in my experience, we all go through these same questions. So when I say to a 56-year-old woman, it's typical that you're asking yourself, is this it? Is this my life? Is this what I've come to? And they go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking. So there's really common questions that arise in all of us in these different ages. Listen to those questions. It's really normal that they come, and then work out through thinking clearly, what is it you want? What would you do if you could do anything?
yeah, absolutely. So, share with us what you've learned about making decisions that are aligned with your values.
Well, first you have to know what your values are. And
Yeah.
I took a long time to work that out. And I don't know that it's an easy thing to do. So I tend to just lean more into what would satisfy me, and then how am I going to behave around that? Getting clear what you want, getting clear on what you've got, what you don't got, in terms of finances, having visibility of your finances, have visibility of everything in your life, and then start to think about, well, what is it that I really want so that I can make decisions aligned with that versus decisions that just I feel like I'm pressured into. Like I was a classic for being pressured into buying something I didn't need simply because there's a person in front of me, wanting to sell me something. It's kind of a modern way of thinking to say, what are your values? Yeah, it was just really hard to work out what my values were.
Mm.
Mm.
And did they come through reflection?
Yeah. In terms of I guess what I value, it came through this very objective thinking about what's happened, where am I at, what are my intentions for the future, what do I really want to do, and then that's where it arises. Like, what in your heart of hearts are you trying to do? What's calling you, and what's the best way of getting there? Mm.
Powerful. So, can you share with us habits, practices, and routines that have helped you stay grounded and connected to yourself? I know we've chatted about journaling, reflection, but are there other things that you, and also walking in nature, which are all, such great. Any other habits or tips you can share with us?
Yes. One of the things is that I'm now married to someone who is committed to this kind of intentional, conscious living in the same way that I am. And one of the things we do, I should say he does it really, he organizes for us to have a monthly date, he calls it. And he and his good friend AI have created, based on a model, but they've created a series of questions. So every month he sits down, or we sit down together, and we work through just like maybe 4 or 5 questions. And what that does is it obviously cements our relationship, but it gets me clear on what's important to me.
Hmm.
It kind of brings me back to center. That is one practice, is to really pause and talk about things like trust, or, what's important in terms of fun, or what's important in terms of, all sorts of things. Like there's nothing not covered in these questions. So that's one practice. The other practice is I have what I call study groups, and one of them is a group of 4 women. We all have different specialties in terms of our natural abilities. We all live in different parts of Tasmania, and we talk at least monthly about our intentions and seek help from each other. So this is a group of women who empower each other. So if one of us gets on and we're in tears, then we help that person work through whatever it is. Or if someone jumps on and goes, okay, I've got to do this thing and I really don't know what to do next, then that group helps. And so we hold each other to account, but more than that, we care for each other in a very uplifting, empowering way. And, um, it's very inspiring. And we all say that we've been doing that for 6 years now. All of us say that what we've got in our lives now is very much supported by that. And then I have another study group that I meet fortnightly. This is not just women, it's men as well. And again, the same thing, like, what are you up to? What help do you need? And this is, the group that's helped me charge what I charge or talk to clients the way I talk to them and things like that. So that that's another practice I have. And it does force me to get myself on top of something. Like I go, oh God, I told them I'd do that thing and I haven't done it. Or I told them I'd come having thought about something and I haven't yet thought about it. So it does keep me moving and being conscious of my own development and evolution, I guess I'd say. And I also have taken on drawing or colouring or painting, but doing something creative just
Mhm.
sits out on the table. And when I've got half an hour, I just sit down and do something. Because I've always, if I look in my life phases, I've got this thread of creativity through my life. So picking that up and making sure that as much as I can, I'm doing something creative. And it helps relax and think. So they're just some of my practices. I'm sure I
Yeah,
could
they're
think of more
excellent.
if I thought about it.
Yeah, no, they're all really good, and I haven't heard them before. Yeah,
Great.
thank you for sharing. So, if you could go back and speak to younger Anna, what would you tell her?
I'd say do your pelvic floor exercises. Can't stress that enough. It'll all work out. It will eventually work out. But surround yourself with the support that's going to help you. And that's really hard because all through my 20s, I think I was searching for that and I didn't really have it. But that's ultimately what I'd say to myself. Find the people that can help you. It'll turn out okay. But of
Yeah,
course, I wouldn't have
love that.
listened. I probably wouldn't have listened.
Goodness. And what have you stopped caring about that you wish you'd stopped caring about sooner?
Boy, what have I stopped? Stuff. Buying stuff. I know I have a lot of stuff, but I've had that stuff for a long time. But yeah, I've stopped caring about shopping and buying stuff. I was a child of the 80s. I knew how to shop. I had shoes of every different color. Yeah, stop buying stuff. Because what I can see now is, and I still do it, when I'm feeling a bit down, I go, oh, I might go op shopping. And then I go, no, you're not. Like, stop it. I don't know if other people are like this, but I feel like shopping and getting stuff was what I did over the top of not dealing with what I should have been dealing with. So I think that's what I've stopped caring about is stuff. Uh, Mind you, I'm still struggling to get rid of my stuff, but I'm definitely not bringing more stuff in.
Well, I know a good resale platform to on all your clothes
You
on.
do. You do.
What gives you hope for the next generation of women?
Well, I look at my two stepdaughters, I look at my son's friends and girlfriends, and I look at some of the clients I've had, women in their 20s and 30s, and I go, seriously, they are so much more conscious and aware than I ever was. Like, just so much more conscious of who they are, what they want. They make way better decisions, I think, than I ever made. Sometimes I despair, like how's this going to end? But I can definitely see that there's inspiration in younger women. And, if they get the right support around them, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And look, just picking up on the social media thing, it isn't real. It's just not real. And it's so subtly demoralizing. And even I avoid LinkedIn because LinkedIn's a bit like that.
Mhm.
So I'm really good at flicking through Instagram and Facebook and laughing and going, oh my God, like, look at that. That's just crazy. But LinkedIn, that still triggers me. Like all these people doing all these amazing things, I should be doing something else. So I don't think it matters what it is. When we start looking online, it happens. There's these triggers. But I think for young women, if they can continually assess that very objectively and get that it's not reality, I think they'll do well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And finally, what does taking back your power mean to you?
Again, it's one of those things, that statement wasn't even invented when I was young. Like, so I go, oh God, I don't even know what that means. To me, power is being able to organize yourself or your environment. To me, that's what I think power is, right? And not having power, again, for me, comes back to our inability to think clearly or accurately about the situation.
Mhm.
So if you think about a conflict with another person, we'll often say, oh, I'm powerless in this conflict or I'm powerless against them. If you actually step back and look very objectively at the facts of that and go, well, actually, it's because they said this and I made that mean that, and then you start to unpack what's really going on, then to me, it's accurate thinking that gets your power back. Thinking accurately and then working out from that what to do. And I've used that many, many times in situations where I've felt powerless. And I've gone,
Mhm.
hang on a minute. I've just gone into my head here. Now let's back it up and work out, what am I saying I'm powerless about? And what is that? What is that really? So that's how I would respond to that getting your power back. Like, what makes you think you don't have it?
Yeah, I love that. Again, reflection.
It's always reflection. And I guess the environment of the world is not reflection. It's moving forward really, really fast. Don't I even had someone who was a potential client once and she said, well, I don't really want to look at the past. I want to look at the future. And I'm like, well, go for it. But if you don't reflect on the past, you can't just make up new things on top of nothing. You have to unpack the past because it's flawed. The future without looking at the past is flawed. So yeah, I think it's really important to look at the past.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. I've got so many words of wisdom from you today, and
Oh,
I'm
thanks.
so happy and grateful to be able to share this with our audience. So thank you, Anna. I really appreciate your time today.
You're
How
welcome.
do people find you if they do want to work with you or ask you follow-up questions?
So I have a website, Anna Stover. It's annastoverconsulting.com.au, or you can find me on LinkedIn. And really the way I work is we just have a chat. We have a chat and we work out what it is you might need and can I help you? And if so, what might that look like? So there's no, you have to do it like this or you have to do it like that or it costs this or it costs that. None of that. It's really just a conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing so
Thank you.
freely and all the wisdom that you've shared with us today. Yeah, until next time.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Eve. It's been great. It's been really good to unpack some things.
Yeah, I bet. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.